If you've ever stared at a messy spreadsheet and thought there's got to be an easier way, you're not alone. I know how frustrating it can be when your data looks inconsistent, when your numbers don't display right, and you lose your place scrolling through endless rows. In just a few minutes, you can learn 3 simple Excel skills that will save you time and headache and make you feel like an Excel ninja. You can take your spreadsheet from one that looks like this to one that looks like this. I'm Brian the Bean Counter, and I'm going to show you how. So let's get started. So cell A1 is centered, has a red font and a yellow background. Well, I want all of row 1 to look that way. So instead of going to each cell and making those choices with each cell, all I have to do is highlight cell A1. That's sort of my palette, if you will. Then come up and click this icon. It's called the Format Painter. It's a paintbrush. Once I click that, you'll see that there is like this little marquee or these ants going around cell A1. So Excel is telling me this is my palette. So now whatever cell I click on is going to take on the characteristics of cell A1. So now when I click on cell B1, it is now bold, centered, with a red font and a yellow background. So I can come back, click the Format Painter again, click cell C1, and so on. Now I'm going to click undo a couple times, and I want to go back to this. Now, if I highlight cell A1, another way you can use the Format Painter is if I highlight cell A1 and I double click, in other words, click quickly on the Format Painter, now it's not just a one-shot deal. Now everything I click on is going to take on the characteristics of cell A1. So it's almost like you have the Midas touch. So now you don't have to keep going back and clicking the Format Painter. I can click cell B1, C1, D1, and E1. Well, I still have the Midas touch, right? You still see the paintbrush on my cursor. Well, I don't want to click anything else. If I do, it's going to be bold, yellow, red, and centered. So now I can do one of two things. I can click on the Format Painter again. Now my Midas touch has gone away. Or I can hit the Escape key on the keyboard and the Format Painter is disabled again. So now for apples, I want apples, bananas, oranges, and grapes. I want them all to have this nice light blue background and green font. So I'm going to double click the Format Painter and just highlight or drag down through cells A3 through A5. Now I'll hit the Escape key and that goes away. So the first skill you have now is using the Format Painter to quickly copy formatting anywhere you need it. So the second frustration that I have when looking at this table is that my decimal points are inconsistent. This one is 1 decimal point, this is 2, 1, this is none. If I highlight all of my cells and I want them all, let's say, we're talking about sales here, so I want them to have 2 decimal points. If you look up here in the ribbon, underneath the number section, I have several options. One of them is to increase or decrease the decimal. If I increase the decimal, if I click that once, it's going to make them all have 2 decimal points. If I clicked it again, they would have 3 and 4, and you can just keep going with that until it just kind of gets ridiculous. I'm going to undo that. Maybe I don't want any decimal points. So then in that case, I would decrease the decimal. All right, now, to me, this doesn't look so much like we're talking about money. So I'm going to highlight them again, and I'm going to increase the decimal and click it twice. So with this tool, you control exactly how the numbers appear, making your data easy to understand. So the third frustration that I have is when I'm scrolling through a website, and let's just pretend that this website has a whole lot more than 4 rows of data. let's say it's all the way down to row 54. Well, as I scroll, I no longer know what my headings were. I can't remember what my headings were for columns, A1, C1, B1, D1, E1. So there's a way in Excel to freeze the top row. So it stays put. So no matter how far down you scroll, you can still see what your column headings are. So to freeze the top row, click on the View button in your menu. And over here on the right, there's a button that says Freeze Panes. So if I click that, I get a drop down. And one of my options here is Freeze Top Row. So I click that. Now my top row is frozen. And no matter how far down I scroll, my column headings stay put. If I want to undo that, I simply click Freeze Panes again and click Unfreeze Panes. You'll notice that when I do have the top row frozen, if I scroll to the right, I also lose my row headings of apples, bananas, oranges, and grapes. So there is a way to freeze those. If I click Freeze Panes, freeze first column. Now, no matter how far to the right I scroll, I still see my row headings. But it's still not right. I want my row headings and column headings to stay put. So now if I click on cell B2 and I click Freeze Panes, when I scroll down, I can still see my column headings. When I scroll to the right, I can still see my row headings. So now your headings stay put no matter how far you scroll. Simple and life-changing. So today we solved 3 common Excel headaches: messy formatting, confusing decimals, and disappearing headers. So these 3 quick tips will save you time and make your spreadsheets easier to work with. If this helped you out, hit that like button, subscribe for more Excel tips, and drop a comment below to let me know what Excel problem you want me to help you solve next.